Right. Good evening. Welcome to this special presentation from Connecting Kids with God. I'm glad for all of you who are attending and also for all of you who will be watching this recording at another time. My name is Valorie Eddy. I'm on staff with Kids at Heart as the director of the Content Development Department, which is in charge of developing all of the material that Kids at Heart uses in training teachers and leaders, both internationally and in this country. A couple of years ago, we began the process of an arrangement with Hope International University in California to develop some courses that will be offered as part of their children's ministry program. And one of the things that I'm excited about is that in addition to this being part of their undergraduate program, this course will also be offered through their SALT program, which is an advanced leadership training program designed specifically for people who are already in children's ministry in churches around the country or around the world. And they have been gracious enough to say that anyone who registers for this course through Kids at Heart, through the SALT program, will receive a much reduced registration fee. The cost for the class will be $300 total rather than over $300 per credit hour for the course. And so I strongly recommend that you check the website for Hope International, and there will also be some links through Kids at Heart. We'd love to have you register for this course. So I'm here tonight to help you experience some of the things that we're going to be talking about in the course and to tell you a little bit about what makes this course different from other online courses that you may have taken. Tonight's session comes from week 5 of CHM 3315, Nurturing Spiritual Development in Children. So we're going to begin with an activity, and we will do several activities tonight, beginning with times for you to reflect quietly. We're going to have a couple of breakout sessions where you can then share your responses with one another. And this will model some of the things that we will be doing in the course, which I will explain to you in a few minutes. So here's our first reflection. We're going to take just a minute to think about this, and then Janet, as our host, I'd like you to put us in a breakout room where 3 or 4 people can talk about their answers to these 2 questions. How would you feel if all your extracurricular activities or those of your children were canceled next week? And what would you do? How would you feel if everything was canceled next week? And what would you do? Think about this quietly for about a minute, and then Janet, will you put us into a breakout room? Would anybody like to share something briefly about what you talked about? How would you feel if everything was canceled next week, and what would you do?
It would be wonderfully refreshing, a welcome slowing of pace of life. And I think I probably wouldn't plan to do a lot. I would plan not to plan.
Okay.
I think I would plan to do something relationship oriented. Many times we're into things that are scheduled or programmed or activities, but we don't spend as much time relationally. So I would do something relation oriented.
Well, thank you. Week 5 of the course on nurturing spiritual formation in children focuses on 2 spiritual practices, simplicity and solitude. The texts that we're going to use for the course include Richard Foster's Celebration of Discipline, Bernie Shore Love's Spiritual Disciplines for Children, and Ruth Haley Barton's Invitation to Solitude and Silence. Now, some of you might be asking the question, why Richard Foster's book and Barton's book if the focus of this course is nurturing spiritual development of children? Well, the reason for this is something that we feel very strongly about at Kids at Heart, and that is that we cannot nurture children in a relationship with Christ Jesus that we ourselves have not experienced. For that reason, course requirements include daily time with the Lord and journaling, with guides for this time, for those of you for whom this might be new, written by Becky Dietz. Those guides can be used for every day or once a week, however you want to. But that daily time with the Lord is a course requirement. Reflective reading of Barton's book on Invitation to Solitude and Silence, where we hope you will practice the things that you're reading about. And then toward the end of the week, there will be a small group, much like the one you just experienced in our breakout session, where participants in the class will share with one another their responses to Barton's suggestions and to the things that they're practicing in that area. In addition, one of the requirements will be setting aside a half day of solitude and silence during that week, week 5. We also have developed by Becky Dietz for this course a wonderful guide for how to spend that day. Now, some of you may already be doing this as a part of your regular spiritual practices, and you will not feel a need to use the guide. But for others who take the course, 3 to 4 hours of solitude and silence may seem a little overwhelming. And Becky has done a wonderful job of creating thought-provoking, reflective activities and questions. So how do we then move from our own development of a closer walk with Jesus, more love for him, into bringing children into these practices? Well, that's where Bernie Shore Love's book is going to be a big help for those who take the class. In her Spiritual Disciplines for Children, she has chapters that match Foster's chapters on spiritual discipline, where she talks about how to talk about these spiritual practices with children, and then gives anywhere from 2 to 5 very specific examples of things to do with children to help them understand and enter into these practices. Students in the course will be required to meet with a child or a group of children every week to walk with them through one of the spiritual practices, to audio tape this time together. That audio tape will be turned into me as the instructor, and there will be a short reflection paper written that will need to be turned in. In addition, there will be one more source of reading regularly that comes from papers written from the Children's Spirituality Conferences, Christian Perspectives, that have been held since 2003. These papers are very thought-provoking, and each week or throughout the course, participants in the class will be reading these articles and using them and Foster's book as the basis for writing very reflective, Socratic type questions in a threaded discussion each week. So you've heard that the class activities include threaded discussions, which you are probably very familiar with if you've taken other online courses. But what makes this class unique is the small group face-to-face meetings, either on Zoom or with others in your church staff if they're taking the course together, and the requirement of our experience and apply assignments where you will be putting into practice these spiritual disciplines with children every week. At this point, do any of you have any questions about the course requirements or how it's going to be organized or how to even access it?
Well, I'm wondering, what's the best way to see more about the course? I know you've given us a lot of information, but if I wanted to go see more, interact with Hope's website, how would I do that?
You can go to www.hiu.edu, and that takes you to the Hope International University website. Then I would suggest that in the search box you type in all caps SALT, S-A-L-T, and that will take you to the page where this course is specifically listed and designed for people who are already in ministry to children. And from that page you will actually easily find the way to register for the course.
So did I understand that there's also a place on the Kids at Heart website where you can get the links to go register? There's a page called Getting Equipped, maybe?
Yes, I believe you're right. Thank you very much. This is brand new. I believe it was only set up last week. But you may also do this through kidsatheart.org, and Getting Equipped is the perfect place to do that. All right, well, if you have other questions, I would be glad to hear them as we continue, but I want us to do a couple more activities together. If you have a piece of paper and something to write with, or your computer is in front of you if you want to do it there, I'd like you to take about a minute and list all the activities you are involved in on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. So if you happen to be a person who doesn't have a lot of weekly commitments, then think about a month. So list all of your activities for either a full week or a full month. Let's take 1 minute to do this. Now, would you look at that list and do two things to it? Mark with a star those activities you enjoy the most, and put a question mark beside those activities that seem burdensome to you. Now let's take a minute of silence for each of us to ask Jesus how he feels about our schedule. And I'm not going to ask you to share this. This is just between you and the Lord. Amen. That's probably not long enough for us to spend in prayer with the Lord over a question like that. So this might be something you want to take into your personal time with the Lord. When we talk about simplicity and simplifying our lives, simplicity often assumes reducing clutter and things. But what about activities? And what about noise? So I'd like to ask you, and this time just in our full group discussion, is there a relationship between simplicity and solitude and silence? What do you think about that?
It seems to me like if my level of simplicity increases, that it will make room in my life for solitude.
Thank you.
And I think about it from almost the opposite perspective, that if I spend more time in silence and solitude, I crave simplicity more.
Thank you. Thank you. Those are very interesting reactions to this, and it's always interesting that we hear different things. I think the Holy Spirit does that for us. Okay, we're going to do one more breakout session. This one we're going to take about 5 minutes for. Janet, we'd like you to do that. And here's the question that I want you to answer in your breakout. How would you help children to live in simplicity? Are there ways that you can do that in child-appropriate ways? I would love to have you register for this course. It's brand new. I will be teaching it. And to encourage you to register soon, we would like to have our giveaway for this meeting be a copy of Barton's book, Invitation to Solitude and Silence, which is a required text. And we would like to send that to the first person from this group who registers for the class. Now, we don't have a way to access the Hope International University registration page. So what we will ask you to do is, when you go online and register for the course, would you please then immediately send me an email to let me know that you registered for the course, and include your mailing address, or let us know whether you would prefer to have the book in digital format, because it also comes digitally. You can send emails to me at Eddy, that's VEDDY, at kidsatheart.org. And I look forward to seeing many of you in that class this fall. It begins August 19th and will go through October 13th. God bless you as you continue to serve in His ministry.